motivation man is fighting biology with a fantasy. He believes discipline is a feeling. He waits for a spark, for a mood, for a clean morning. And when the day turns ugly, stress, fatigue, noise, he doesn't rise to his goals. He drops to his defaults. That's the myth. Motivation is fuel. It's not. Dopamine isn't a loyalty contract. It's a signal that spikes with novelty, then fades. So the motivation man becomes addicted to starting. New plan, new reset, new identity. But no standard, no code, no line he refuses to cross. And how this looks like in real life. It's 11:47 p.m. Your phone is bright in a dark room. You're not having fun. You're numbing out. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you're bargaining. Tomorrow I'll lock in. Tomorrow I'll wake up early. Tomorrow I'll fix it. And for a few seconds, it works. You feel relief, not because you changed anything, but because you gave yourself permission to delay the pain. That's why motivation makes men softer. It trains a man to move only when conditions are perfect. But life is not built on perfect mornings. It's built on ordinary nights, when you don't feel like doing it, and you do it anyway. When your mood collapses, what remains? If the answer is nothing, you don't need more inspiration. You need a standard. There are two paths, not two mindsets, two operating systems. The first man lives on condition. He calls it being realistic, but it's dependence. He moves when he feels sharp, when the day is clean, when the mood is right. And the moment life turns ugly, bad sleep, stress, noise, friction, he interprets it as a sign to pause. He tells himself he's just resetting, but what he's really protecting is the comfort of not being tested. The second man lives on a standard. He doesn't ask his feelings for permission. He doesn't chase the spark. He treats discipline like a line in the sand. When the day collapses, he doesn't try to become a hero. He just refuses to break the code. Picture two men with the same goal, same distractions, same pressure. Monday looks identical. Both start strong, both feel motivated. But motivation is only impressive when it survives Wednesday. Wednesday is when real life shows up. Something goes wrong. You're tired. Your head is loud. Your body wants easy. The motivation man hears that and immediately starts bargaining. He delays, not because he's stupid, but because he's trained himself to believe that discipline requires a certain emotional weather. The standard man does something that looks almost too small to matter. 10 minutes, one page, one ugly draft, one set. Not to make progress, but to keep the identity intact. Because he understands the real rule. The work you do on bad days doesn't build results first. It builds a man you can trust. When you skip on a bad day, you don't just lose time. You install a policy in your nervous system. When it's hard, we retreat. Do that enough times and you become predictable, ambitious in your head, inconsistent in reality. So the question isn't, how do I get more motivated? The question is, what happens the moment motivation leaves? What do you fall back on? A mood collapses, a standard remains. It always starts the same way, not with failure, with a conversation. A quiet internal courtroom where you argue your own case like a lawyer. You present evidence, the stress, the fatigue, the long day, the unfairness of it all. And you win. You always win, because the judge is also you. That's what negotiation really is, self-corruption dressed up as self-care. The motivation man doesn't collapse because he's lazy. He collapses because he keeps reopening the terms of his life. Every day becomes a new contract. Every standard becomes optional. And once the standard is optional, discipline becomes a performance, something you do when conditions approve it. One man has rules, the other man has opinions. And opinions change with weather. You sit down to work, and your mind reaches for comfort like it's medicine. You tell yourself you'll start after you check something, after you eat, after you clean, after you get the perfect plan. And each after feels harmless, but after is the most expensive word a man can speak to himself. Because it doesn't just delay the task, it delays the identity. The brain learns by repetition, not by speeches. It doesn't care what you believe at 9 a.m. It cares what you do when you're tired at 9 p.m. And if you negotiate every time discomfort appears, you train one reflex: escape. And the worst part is how invisible it is. You don't call it quitting. You call it being reasonable. You call it balance. You call it rest. You call it not forcing it. But real rest doesn't require lies. If you want to know whether it's rest or weakness, ask one question. Did you decide it before you were tired? Or because you got tired? A standard is something you choose in cold blood. Negotiation is what you do when you're warm and looking for an exit. People think discipline is built on big, heroic days. It isn't. It's built on the smallest actions done without debate, especially when you feel low. You don't need more intensity. You need a system that prevents negotiation from ever opening. Most men try to fix inconsistency with intensity. They disappear for a week, then come back with a clean notebook, a new routine, a violent burst of effort. Gym, cold showers, perfect diet, 10 tasks in one day. They call it a comeback. But intensity is not discipline. Intensity is emotion. It's a spike, a surge, a temporary identity costume you wear when you're angry at yourself. And the problem with spikes is simple. They always crash. When you build your discipline on big days, you teach your brain another policy. We only change when pain gets loud. So life becomes a cycle of decay and panic. You drift. You rot slowly. Then one day you hate what you see. So you explode into action until you can't sustain it. And you drift again. Real discipline looks almost boring. Not because it's weak, because it's stable. It doesn't depend on adrenaline. It doesn't require perfect mornings. It survives the normal ugliness of being human. A standard is not a goal. A goal lives in the future. A standard lives today. A goal says, I will become. A standard says, I do not cross this line. When you live on intensity, you ask, how much can I do today? When you live on standards, you ask, what is the minimum that proves I am still that man? Minimum doesn't mean lazy. Minimum means non-negotiable. On good days, you go beyond it. On bad days, you protect it. That's why you need a bad day version of you. Not the heroic version, the reliable version. The one that can move even when the spark is dead. Here's what a standard really is. It's not a habit you try to keep. It's a boundary you refuse to violate. The motivation man treats discipline like a performance. If he feels strong, he performs. If he feels weak, he disappears. Standards end that theater because standards don't ask how you feel. They ask what you do. A standard is the smallest proof of identity, not the version of you in your head. The version of you on a random Tuesday when nobody is watching. Standards feel almost insulting at first. Too simple, too small, too basic. That's the ego talking. The ego wants a grand transformation, a cinematic montage. But the nervous system learns through repetition, not drama. You don't build a disciplined life by doing something massive once. You build it by refusing to go below a minimum, repeatedly, until it becomes who you are. A standard makes the terms rigid. You respect yourself enough to remove the debate. Minimum is what you do when you're not at your best. Minimum is the insurance policy that protects your identity when life hits you in the mouth. Bad days are guaranteed, so you don't need hype. You need a protocol. Discipline doesn't start when you feel ready. It starts when you feel unready and you move anyway. Bad days are not a glitch. They're the environment. Most men lose the war at night when the brain is tired and the body wants comfort. They keep expecting themselves to perform like it's morning. Then they fail and they call it a character flaw. It's not a flaw, it's a missing protocol. On a bad day, you don't need inspiration. You need frictionless execution. Something so simple you can't think your way out of it. The bad day protocol is not heroic. It's designed to keep your standard alive. Shut down the spiral with a physical reset. Stand up, drink water, breathe slow, long exhale. Tell your nervous system, we are acting. Then ignite the body, nothing complicated, just enough to flip the switch. A short burst, push-ups, squats, a fast walk. A dead body creates a dead mind. Movement creates momentum. Now one strike, one piece of real output. Not planning, not organizing, not getting ready. Contact, write the first sentence, read one page and take one note. Send one email, do one set. 5 minutes is enough if it's real. The motivation man asks for a feeling first. The standard man creates the feeling through action. Every time you complete the protocol on a bad day, you send one message to your brain. We don't negotiate, we execute. It won't always make you feel amazing, it keeps you in the fight. And if you stay in the fight, you win by default, because most men quit long before results even have a chance to show up. Every time you complete the protocol on a bad day, something rare happens. You stop lying to yourself. And that's the real currency here, self-trust. Most men don't lack information. They lack proof. They've broken so many promises to themselves that their own words have become noise. So when they say, "I'm going to change," their nervous system doesn't believe it. The standard fixes that because it turns your word into evidence. Today, when you don't feel like it, discipline isn't about becoming intense. It's about becoming credible. You make a small contract and you honor it, especially when it's inconvenient. The goal is not to feel unstoppable. The goal is to become the kind of man who doesn't need to feel unstoppable to still move. Stress will return. Sleep will break. Motivation will vanish. So what remains when the feeling is gone? A mood collapses. A standard remains. You stop chasing new starts. You stop resetting your identity every Monday. You become dangerous under control, quiet, consistent, hard to move off your line. The motivation myth makes men soft because it teaches them to wait. Standards teach a man to move, so don't ask for a spark, don't ask for a mood, don't ask for a clean morning. Draw a line. Keep it small, keep it non-negotiable. And tonight, when your brain tries to bargain, run the bad day protocol. Not to impress yourself, not to transform, just to keep the code alive. Because discipline doesn't count when it's easy. It counts when you're tired, stressed, and unready. And you do it anyway. Make the contract, raise your standard, live by the code.